Hello, and welcome back to Hope is Kindled. Today we revisit a novel that is both youthful and timeless, filled with friendship, struggle, violence, and beauty, The Outsiders. This is more than a coming-of-age story. It's a snapshot of a particular America, a voice of disillusioned youth in the 1960s, and a call to see the world with unclouded eyes. At its heart, it's a reminder to stay gold, even when the world demands that innocence be traded away. Be warned, you will hear that phrase more than a few times throughout this episode. So hear it once again, stay gold. If it rings true for you, I suggest you buy a t-shirt. I have one myself. Susan Eloise Hinton was just 16 when she began writing The Outsiders in Tulsa, Oklahoma. At that time, stories about teenagers were often glossy, sentimental, or dismissive. At a time when most Atina books were sanitized and safe, she delivered grit, violence, tenderness, and truth. Her characters smoked, fought, cried, and dreamed, and for the first time, young readers saw themselves fully, unflinchingly, on the page. Hinton didn't just write a book, she opened a door. She created a space where youth literature could be real, a space that authors from Judy Blume to Angie Thomas still walk through today. She was, and remains, an iconic writer who proved that age doesn't limit artistry, and that sometimes the most powerful voices are the youngest ones daring to speak. Hinton gave us something raw. Violence in alleys, kids smoking, running, loving, and losing, real kids with real voices. This was a different time. The 1960s meant more freedom for young people to roam, to gather, to live without the kind of constant surveillance that marks our world today. Kids fought, drove fast cars, sneaked into drive-in theaters. You see it in The Outsiders, but you also feel it in the movie Over the Edge, from 1979, another portrait of youth rebelling, sometimes destructively, against a world that didn't quite see them. There was danger in that freedom, but there was also life. The Outsiders captures it like lightning in a bottle. Ponyboy Curtis, our narrator, is a greaser, poor, tough, loyal, sensitive. He loves sunsets, movies, and poetry. His brothers Derry and Soda Pop hold the family together after their parents' deaths. His gang, Johnny, Dallas, Two-Bit, Steve are his extended family, bound by loyalty in a world that dismisses them. Against them stand the Sox. These are the wealthy kids with privilege and power. The two groups clash violently, and tragedy follows. Johnny and Dallas both die young. Yet in the ashes of loss, Ponyboy recalls Johnny's final words, which are, once again, "Stay gold, Ponyboy." Johnny's plea to Ponyboy is a call to hold on to innocence, wonder, and sensitivity in a world that hardens people too quickly. It's not about refusing to grow up. It's about carrying forward the ability to see sunsets, to love poetry, to keep compassion alive even amid violence, loss, and class struggle. For Ponyboy, staying gold is about remembering that beauty and goodness are worth clinging to, even as life demands you toughen up. It's a moral and emotional survival strategy. By contrast, in the picture of Dorian Gray, the desire to stay gold takes on a darker, twisted form. Dorian doesn't want to preserve his innocence or compassion. He wants to preserve his physical beauty and youthful allure while casting off the moral consequences of his choices. Where Ponyboy's gold is an inner state of wonder, Dorian's is an outer mask of perfection. And instead of keeping him grounded in empathy, his pursuit of eternal youth detaches him from responsibility, corrupting his soul even as his face remains unchanged. So in essence, Ponyboy's gold equals innocence plus empathy, preserved despite hardship. Dorian's gold equals beauty plus pleasure, preserved at the cost of conscience. Both works wrestle with the fleeting nature of youth, but where Hinton urges us to treasure its moral vision, Wilde warns us of the danger of idolizing its surface. Hinton was writing in an America divided not only by class, but by culture. The Greasers and Sox embody the tension between poverty and privilege, working-class youth, and suburban affluence. This division echoes across literature we've studied: Pip and Estella in Great Expectations, Edmond Dantes betrayed by the privileged in The Count of Monte Cristo, even Atticus Finch's world in To Kill a Mockingbird. But the novel also reflects a historical moment of youth rebellion. The 1960s and 1970s brought counterculture, rock music, and films like Rebel Without a Cause and Over the Edge. Kids were beginning to insist that their voices mattered, that their pain, freedom, and identity couldn't be reduced to stereotypes. Hinton's characters aren't abstract symbols, they are realistic, breathing portraits of adolescents caught between fragility and survival. Ponyboy struggles with identity, as we stated earlier. Johnny is traumatized, quiet, and battered by abuse, yet in the end he becomes heroic, finding a measure of meaning in sacrifice. Dallas is the hardest shell of all, violent, restless, self-destructive, but beneath it lies a boy hollowed out by a world that failed him long before he had the chance to grow up. But Hinton does more than show us the struggle. She points to what can grow from it. In the midst of brokenness, the novel offers glimpses of resilience and meaning. The idea that suffering can either calcify into bitterness or soften into compassion. Viktor Frankl would recognize this, the insistence that even in pain, there is meaning to be found. Emerson would recognize it, the urgent need for self-reliance, for authenticity amid conformity and pressure to belong. And perhaps Whitman would recognize it too, in Ponyboy's longing for beauty, the sunset, the line of Frost's poem, that insists life is not only violence, but also wonder. This is why The Outsider still speaks so powerfully to young readers. It acknowledges the rage, the confusion, and the brokenness of adolescence. But it doesn't stop there. It whispers that there is another way. That grief can teach. That identity can be chosen. That even in the harshest corners of the world, one can still stay gold. Francis Ford Coppola's 1983 film adaptation immortalized the story. Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Matt Dillon, Ralph Macchio, Tom Cruise, Emilio Estevez, it was a gallery of young stars before they became legends. The film made the story visceral, its tears and blood on-screen for a new generation. The only movie to come close to capturing this feeling was Over the Edge, another story where a youth rebellion spirals to tragic destruction. Together, these films remind us there was a time when kids were less shielded, more vulnerable, but also more alive. They sought freedom, even recklessly, in ways that now feel almost unthinkable in our managed, digital, overstructured age. When we set The Outsiders against the backdrop of world literature, its resonance deepens into something timeless. Ponyboy is not simply a teenager on the wrong side of town. He belongs to a lineage of characters who struggle between the harshness of reality and the pull of imagination. Like Don Quixote, he inhabits two worlds at once: the gritty streets where fists decide fate, and the secret, luminous world only a sensitive soul can see. That tension between survival and wonder is the essence of his story. Like the Iliad, Hinton's novel is steeped in tribal conflict. The greasers and the socks may not wear bronze armor or call upon the gods, but their battles echo the rivalries of Homer's heroes. Honor must be defended. Violence must be answered. Every feud comes at a price, and too often the young pay it with their lives. Beneath the switchblades and the street fights lies the same ancient question: what is the cost of belonging, and how much blood is too much for pride? Like the Brothers Karamazov, the novel wrestles with violence and guilt, and with the haunting truth that innocence can be shattered in an instant. Johnny's trembling hands, Ponyboy's grief, Dallas and his self-destruction all carry the weight of a Dostoevskian tragedy. These are boys, not men, but they are forced into choices that would break anyone. And yet, it is in their brokenness that the human heart becomes visible. Like Girl Interrupted, The Outsiders captures the restlessness of youth trying to define itself in a fractured world. The novel paints a portrait of adolescence itself, uncertain, searching, vulnerable. Every page asks the same question that echoes through the lives of young readers, asking, who am I? Where do I belong? And like Bob Dylan's music, it is an anthem for the misfits, the dreamers, the outsiders. It sings of those who are told they don't matter, yet still find the courage to hope. It is music for the back alleys and the broken homes, the kind of song that makes pain bearable because it tells you that you are not alone. And then, in the midst of all this, comes the refrain that ties the novel to the great river of poetry and philosophy: stay gold. Frostaway wrote it. bluntly, beautifully when he wrote, "Nothing gold can stay." Whitman, too, would have recognized it. That call to keep wonder alive, to hold fast to the freshness of the soul, even as the world tries to strip it, it is not naive. It is defiant. It is hope refusing to die in the face of violence, grief, and loss. The Outsiders is more than a teenage novel. It is a hymn for survival, a plea for beauty, and a reminder that even in the darkest streets, we are still called to stay gold. I remember when life was different, when kids roamed more freely, when fights broke out behind schools, when drive-ins were alive, when you could wander until the streetlights came on. Life was dangerous, but it was also raw, authentic. Reading The Outsiders brings me back to that time and makes me ache with nostalgia. The friendships, the loyalty, the mistakes, they were real. Kids today grow up differently, under a different kind of pressure, but the longing for belonging, for freedom, for identity, is the same. When Johnny whispers to Ponyboy to stay gold, I feel that plea in my bones. It's not just for Ponyboy, it's for all of us. To hold on to beauty, wonder, and hope, even when the world grows hard. The Outsiders also feels strikingly apropos in today's world. Its portrait of class struggle, the greasers on one side, the socks on the other, is not just a snapshot of Tulsa in the 1960s, but a mirror of the divisions we still wrestle with now. The details may have changed, different neighborhoods, different labels, different politics, but the fault lines remain. Wealth and poverty, privilege and exclusion, power and powerlessness. Indignity. Our modern political climate, where polarization too often defines the conversation, Hinton's novel reminds us that beneath the stereotypes are real human beings, with dreams, fears, and the same hunger for it challenges us to see beyond sides and remember what Ponyboy finally understood. That sunsets look the same from anywhere, and that our common humanity is always greater than what divides us. The Outsiders reminds us that being young is both a gift and a trial. That class, violence, and tragedy may mark us, but they do not define us. That loyalty and friendship can be lifelines. And above all, that even in the ashes of grief, hope can shine. So let's take Johnny's words seriously. Stay gold. Hold on to wonder, beauty, and hope, even when the world tries to take it from you. And, as always, good journey.